Hey, I'm out here in the woods right now, and I wanted to record a new video. It has been so long since I've recorded, and I don't even know if I have posted my last recording. It was a little wonky. I'll try not to move around too much because I know this rain jacket is going to make some noise. But I wanted to talk about intelligence. I wanted to talk about how we feel about intelligence in the West, as Americans, as people in the modern age. And don't get me wrong, it's a huge subject, and it's a very important subject. And intelligence, it really determines a lot of people's outcomes. You see these studies, at 7 years old, someone with very high intelligence versus someone who's an adult with very low intelligence, like their trajectory in life, in income, in not having addictions, in not ending up in prison, in so many different things in life are almost predetermined by intelligence. However, we do know that you can change your intelligence, that there is something that you can do to work hard, to increase one's intelligence, to increase your output, to increase these good outcomes in your life. And I wanted to talk about some avenues that I found that have worked for me, that I think really helped me reach a new level in my own life. First, it's so interesting in our culture, especially in the West, here in the United States, how we feel about IQ. And I think it is part of this post-enlightenment move away from spirituality and Christianity and things like this. We are obsessed with metrics. We are obsessed with the data, right? Everything is by the numbers. How much money do you make? What's your IQ? How hot are you on the scale from 1 to 10, right? How much does your car cost? How much does your house cost? And don't get me wrong. These things are important. These things are important, especially when you're on the very bottom end of the economy, of society. But they're not everything. And I think maybe it is the move away from Christianity that has changed things for people, that makes it harder for people to sort of understand that there are things that are very important that are not those things. I mean, it's like so simple, and I think we all understand it at a very innate level. If you're choosing a spouse, do you want the most good-looking spouse with the most money? Or do you want the most honest spouse, the most merciful, the one with grace, or the one who is willing to admit that they are wrong and change their behavior? These are things that don't have metrics, right? We don't have honesty units. You can watch someone's behavior, right, and see how they act. But these are not really measurable things in our lives like income is, like followers on social media are, and I guess that makes it much more difficult to be able to rate people on them and to be able to see their importance in our own daily lives. So maybe it has been my faith that has helped me sort of be able to see these things. It has certainly been a lot of Stefan Molyneux. I mean, I'm not sure if I've posted the last video, but with hard work you can increase your IQ 10 to 15 points. I feel like it's not that hard if you really interact with Stefan's work honestly and do the self-work. It will happen naturally, and that is a lot of what I think this video is going to be about. Being honest with yourself and being able to understand where you're at. So part of the thing that I wanted to talk about was the cargo cult around intellectualism. People's inability to understand intelligence from the signifier and the signified. All right, so let's define intelligence. Let's give it a definition here. I would say it is the ability to learn, to adapt to new contexts, learn new things. It is the ability to have good pattern recognition and then apply that pattern recognition to an unsolved problem that matches the pattern. It is the ability to make reasonable decisions in one's life. And something that I've seen a lot with the modern day information system is we have all this social media. We have all these YouTube videos and YouTube essays and 2-minute reels on social media that can tell us about physics or medieval history. And they're all very interesting, don't get me wrong. They can pique your interest into a particular subject. But I think the flood of information is where we get lost. It is this flood of information that keeps us from ever going deep into a particular subject. And it's all this surface level interest in things. And people aren't reading. This is, if you're at all in the literacy milieu or writing communities, it's like people are not reading, or if they are reading, it is far lower level than people in our country were reading decades ago, generations ago. So what is the problem here? And the thing is, these things are addicting, right? One of the things, I got into a little conversation with someone on Twitter a while ago, on X, about they used to love Stefan, but haven't interacted with his work since he's been off YouTube. And they said, it's my fault. I could have just gone one site over to follow him again. And I said, you know what? It is your fault. It is. It's very easy to go on to Rumble or to Locals or Odyssey or whatever to find his content. But, you can be easy on yourself, because guess what? Google has spent $1 billion making YouTube addicting and refining the algorithm and promoting people who are going to keep you on the site as long as possible. So I guess we shouldn't ignore all the work that has gone into that. I wanted to talk about cargo cultism because I think it's very interesting. So the cargo cults, the one that I remember the most is John Frum, the John Frum cargo cult, because they do have this singing sort of ritual, I guess, that they do that is very interesting, and the music is actually very catchy. But basically, I believe an American soldier, World War II, something like that, crash landed there or had to eject his plane somewhere in Africa, something like that. And he found this tribe and they said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm John from America." But they thought he was saying his name is John Frum. So now they have this cargo cult. So what is the cargo cult? Often it is these ancient tribes, these uncontacted tribes that have encountered the modern technology and civilization. And a lot of these, you'll see them building planes out of bamboo and worshipping that. The idea is that they received cargo from these higher technology civilizations, and they began to worship the signifier instead of the signified. So what is this? They'll build bamboo airplanes and worship them. They'll build sort of the artifacts that they were able to recover from these crash sites. What they don't honor and love is rationalism. They don't say, look, we need to get rid of mysticism in our society. We need to be honest. We need to dethrone these maybe heritable hierarchies that we have. We need to love reason and rationality and move forward as a culture in that way. And that will eventually lead us to physics and engineering. And that will eventually lead us to better forms of politics where there's not as much violence and there's not as much trauma. And that will lead us to a civilization that can build airplanes. That doesn't happen. Instead, they worship the physical airplane. And in some way, I think that is a lot of what we are doing in terms of intelligence. So what do I mean? I mean, one of the biggest is BreadTube. There's a lot. There's these people on YouTube. There's credentialism, right? Is someone smart? Is someone smart because they have credentials? Is someone smart because they are willing to debate on YouTube, or they've gotten very good at debating on YouTube? Excuse me. And I think we often forget human motivations in these things. It's not that people who have PhDs or doctorates or credentials are not smart. They definitely have been able to go through the process. Certainly, I'm not discounting that. But I think that we forget that people have human motivations. People want to keep their jobs. People want to have high status. People want to have good paying jobs and people to respect and like them. And that doesn't often involve society, it doesn't involve honesty, especially in the society that we are in. And I think we forget that often. One of the big ones that I've seen is these debaters on YouTube. I'm obviously thinking of Destiny, first of all, because he's the winner of BreadTube. He is the best debater, right? And the thing is, I've seen a lot of people become obsessed with him. I mean, that's why he has this following. And, we all have these parasocial relationships with streamers. But it's really interesting, Destiny, because he talks really fast. And he can whip out these statistics so quickly. And it appears like he wins. But if you were at all familiar with Destiny, I get it. I had a period where I was interested in his content. You begin to see these other things about him. These metrics that are harder to quantify. He talks really fast. He does Mott and Bailey, right? He can talk circles around you. But in his personal life, he was polyamorous. In his personal life, he tried a lot of different drugs. He would make very nasty jokes about certain events, about politicians being attacked, things like this. He'd make these sort of comments that would clue you in, if you were paying attention to his personal life, to maybe this person is not the person that we should be spending all of our time watching and being interested in. And he's very, very popular. He's very popular. But the thing is, winning debates is different than seeking truth, finding the truth. They're different things. They can be the same, but they can also be different. Online debates can be blood sports. And, I mean, we're in the future now, right? We've seen all the debacles that has happened in Destiny's life. And I think at some point you have to ask yourself, is this a particular person that I want to go to? This is reminding me of an article I read on Substack. If I can find it, I'll try to link it here. But basically, the author was trying to argue that because we live in a time of so much information, intelligence is no longer knowing statistics and facts, or it's not as correlated with these certain things, but it's correlated with taste. We have all this time. How do you spend your time? What do you spend your time on? What sort of media do you consume? Do you watch Stefan Molyneux? Do you listen to Stefan Molyneux as a podcast? And look, I get it. I'm not saying I never listen to humor or silly things, fun things. I do all the time. But there's a big difference between spending your time reading and listening to Stefan or some other philosophy or something like this, and then watching a show for a little while or playing some video games. There's a big difference between that and spending all of your time on these things. Sort of my argument with Destiny here was to be that he is the cargo cult of intelligence, right? Instead of understanding true intelligence and seeking this out, people have worshipped what intelligence appears to be rather than what it is. So destiny is worshipping the fuselage of the airplane instead of worshipping honesty, integrity, and rationalism. Similarly, taste is a huge factor in this. I guess if you are at a certain level, you are unable to discern what true intelligence is. And look, I get it. When I first found Steph, I've probably been listening to him straight for 6 years now. But when I first saw him 9 years ago, I watched a video or two and then, maybe got halfway through them. I wasn't super into it. And it's sort of funny to recall my initial experiences with him, because I would see a video and I'd be like, ooh, all right, the fall of Rome, truth about the fall of Rome. And I'd click it and I'd be like, it's just this bald guy and a blue screen for 2.5 hours? Boring, click off. And, eventually I gave him a chance, and I discovered, it's a gold mine. But it is sort of funny, and I get it. We live in a high dopamine addiction world where people spend hundreds of millions and billions on psychologists and writers and aesthetics to make us addicted to these things. But taste is a huge factor. What we spend our time on is a huge factor. Being able to discern intelligence and things that will make us smarter from people who have the symbols and signs of it is very important here. And before I go on to this next subject, I wanted to talk about Sam Hyde has one of those, he has that true common man intelligence. If you know these sort of people in your life, you'll know what I'm talking about. People who haven't been to college or are not really in great higher education, and yet they have this beautiful cutthroat intelligence. And I know Sam Hyde is very wealthy. He went to RISD. His family was very wealthy. But one of the things that he said that always stuck with me is that the shows are some of the worst brain rot available to us. You go home, you watch a movie, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, okay. All right. You spent that time. You have the rest of your evening. You can do other things. Shows can be 20 hours, 30 hours. I get it, they're very addicting, and some of them are very entertaining, but the shows are some of the worst things for you. I think Game of Thrones was maybe the last one I was super into. And not that there aren't good ones out there, but if you're really looking at your time, how fast life is passing us and passing you by, I think the shows are definitely one of the worst ones for you. Back onto that point of going deep, wanting to go deeper into subjects. Reading is one of those things. It's like you just have to do it. And you can start very slow and build up. For me, the challenge of reading something like Infinite Jest or truly understanding Augustine's Confessions, philosophy is definitely one of these really hard ones. But Infinite Jest is one of those books that people do not complete. The culture around the book is, you can't finish this book. You will tap out. And I loved that. There's something so challenging about it that I wanted to get into and read. But the thing is, the reality is, if you are not reading regularly, it's going to be very difficult. And one of the things that you can do is slowly build up your tolerance for reading again to get back into that. If you just think about it, reading 10 pages a day is 300 pages a month. That's a book. If it's a short book, it's a book and a half. You can, in a year, become someone who has read 12 books versus someone who reads 0. And the difference is huge. When you're talking to people who only watch these reels or YouTube videos, you suddenly become transformed. You suddenly become someone very interesting who has something to say on a lot of topics and a depth on a lot of topics. And it changes you completely. Okay, I'm going to cap this off. I just wanted to get to the main subject that I had this entire time. That And part of it is linked to being able to interact with Stefan's work. Look, there are other people. Jordan Peterson helped me a lot in the early days when I was a young man. We all have these phases where we go through the red pill sort of things and these raw truths about the world that we understand. But I think you overcome those things and move on to greater pastures in the end. But I wanted to say, I think honesty, self-knowledge, honesty, and doing that work, whether it's journaling or finding a good therapist and doing good talk therapy, will increase your intelligence. It's so interesting. I'm around a lot of really smart people. I'm friends with a lot of these people. And it is fascinating to see how the smarter someone is, the more tricks that they have to be able to fool themselves. You'll talk to them about some subject and they'll be really on it. They'll be really on top of things. And then you bring it to their personal life, you'll bring it to their relationships, you bring it to geopolitics. And suddenly they have this block where with other things they'll be able to be honest about things, and you bring it here and they are unable to. And one thing Stefan has said, first of all, read Real-Time Relationships. I mean, a lot of his work is condensed into that book, and if you really read it and grok it, understand it, be honest with yourself and journal about it, I think that will, it'll truly change your life for the better. I tell everyone I know about it. I give this book away to people. I mean, do people read it? How many people interact with it? It's very hard. It's very hard if you haven't done the work to get through these things. I get it. But that book will change your life. And one of the things that he said, I believe in universally preferable behavior, I forget exactly where he said it, was that in the modern day, a lot of genius is no longer discovering new things. A lot of things have been discovered. The genius is in applying things rationally across contexts. Newton, when the apple fell, he said to himself, oh wow, if gravity is here, why wouldn't it apply in the heavenly bodies, the celestial bodies? Why wouldn't gravity also apply in those contexts? He was not really discovering that gravity was working with planetary motion, but he was rather applying what he knew about physics on Earth and saying that it must also apply in celestial body movement. Similarly, we can be very rational about certain things. Things cannot both go up and down at the same time. It has to be one or the other. We can say, in our particular field, A goes to B, goes to C. But then it comes to our personal lives. We have these blocks. We have these big blocks. They happen all the time with our mother, our father, brother, our sister, our personal relationships. We just can't get these patterns to click. And I think RTR helps with that a lot. Listening to Steph helps with that a lot. Journaling, self-knowledge helps with that a lot. But I think this is a big block on intelligence, and for me, once I was able to work through these things, it unlocked a different level. Because if I can be honest about software engineering, okay, I can be super honest about software engineering and I can figure it out. I can be super honest about my studies in psychology and I can figure that out. But then when it comes to my relationship with one of my parents, when it comes to my relationship with one of my friends, suddenly I'm very dishonest. And being able to work through those contexts and apply everything evenly is what unlocks your ability to be honest in other contexts. So I don't know, I think intelligence is a lot of us not knowing things, but a lot of it is our inability to be honest across contexts, our ability to be honest. And when we have these blocks in our personal lives, it really translates over to these other contexts. And it's very easy to see once you've cross that boundary. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm Einstein here. I have worked through this. I'm working through this in a lot of my life. But this is a big one for me. And I think lastly, there's a big difference between knowing and understanding. I studied psychology in college. I knew a lot of these things, and look, let's be real. I get it. Freud lied about a lot of things. A lot of people, especially in university, have different motivations, alternative motivations to helping people. The things I've seen. I've met a person who became a therapist, and this is just personal life. Met a person who became a therapist, and I said, "How is it being a therapist? Do you like it?" And she told me, my goal as a therapist is to make as many men as possible realize their toxic masculinity. Not help them, right? She had an agenda. A lot of people have agendas. I get this. But if you are able to find honest, truthful information, you can know it. I know addiction stems from traumatic childhoods, traumatic relationships, usually with parents. I know that bad, continual relationships with girlfriends or boyfriends, being in abusive relationships, that comes from trauma. For a long time, I knew these things, but I did not understand them. I did not understand them. It can be brutal. My analogy here would be when I broke my arm when I was young. The doctor said, "Look, we have to break your arm again. We have to break it into alignment before we can put a cast on it so it will heal." So they did, and it was very painful. But that was over a decade ago now, and my arm is functional. What I'm trying to say is, a lot of intelligence or moving forward in life is painful. It can be painful. It can be stressful. There can be suffering involved. It's not just knowing, but to understand. I'm empathetic. I understand. There's pain there. There's pain to get to the other side. But I've done a lot of work. I have more to do. But I feel obligated to share that with people. Guys, please, watch Stefan. Read Real-Time Relationships. It'll change your life. There's going to be some pain or suffering depending on where you are in your journey, but you can do it. There is a brighter future on the other side. I believe in you.